Hey everybody, welcome to Qué Golazo. This is a special episode as we talk CONMEBOL World Cup Qualifiers in October, and I have a great guest with me, my pal, my friend, the super talented Melissa Ortiz, as we will discuss all the games, all the storylines as October South American World Cup Qualifiers kick off. Qué Golazo begins right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Qué Golazo. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter, Qué Golazo Pod. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube.com/Qué Golazo. Thank you for supporting us. Make sure that you keep doing it and share because we want to keep on growing this family. Right then, this is our CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying special, and I am so happy to welcome my friend, the super talented Olympian, former Colombian star, always remembered by Colombia. She is also an analyst, on-air reporter, on-site pitch reporter. She has a coffee company. She's ridiculously talented. She's my friend, Melissa Ortiz. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Luis Miguel. That was quite the intro, making me blush this early in the morning. But no, super honored to be here alongside yourself. You know, as soon as I moved to New York, I remember I called you actually. Wait, really quickly before we dive into this, I called you and I'm like, hey, I'm about to move to New York. I listened to your podcast. You're a big inspiration, and that just honestly opened the flood doors of just inspiration and being here in New York and everything.
Well, listen, I take no credit, but I do remember that Melissa and I are friends away from the professional world, but she did call me one time and she was like, I'm moving to New York. I just want to know what you think, any advice or whatever. You know, I gave my 2 cents, but my goodness, have you climbed the mountain. So happy to see you shine. It's so great. And hopefully we'll see even more. And by the way, this week, Melissa, you'll be with fuboTV again, right? Doing some World Cup qualifiers.
That is right. fuboTV has the rights of these CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers in both English and Spanish. So you'll see me on both sides, in English and in Spanish, alongside great talent. Julie Stewart-Binks, who is the host, Caitlin Kyle, Fernando Fiore on the English side, and in Spanish, Juan Pablo Angel, Antonella, who is the host, and Fernando Fiore on the Spanish side too. So it's a gang, and it's going to be really fun. I love working with fuboTV for these qualifiers.
I love it. And respect this right now. Alternating studios between English and Spanish. That's just, I love, La Cultura is strong and I love it. So make sure that you tune in, of course. And Juan Pablo Angel, make sure that you tell him I said hello. A Villa legend, by the way, if everybody remembers. But anyway, let's talk World Cup qualifiers. Melly, obviously over here at Qué Golazo, Jimmy Conrad, Heath Pierce, we always have to tip the hat and prioritize USMNT and USWNT, of course, with attacking third. But it's always good to remind everybody that there is no harder tournament, no tougher moment, no more difficult experience than CONMEBOL South American World Cup qualifiers. It's an absolute hellhole for everybody. It's the most competitive, toughest, hardest competition from World Cup qualification than anybody. Please, Melissa, echo this sentiments.
That is absolutely accurate and true. You know, you can compare UEFA, you can compare CONCACAF, you can compare, all the factors around all these confederations around the world and Africa, but CONMEBOL definitely provides not only the best entertainment and drama that we have seen, obviously, as the last match day, but also just the circumstances for the players, because the altitude, because of the traveling factors, when there's fans in the stands, it's a different circumstance, whereas, home field advantage is quite amazing. But all these factors is what equals that the CONMEBOL is definitely what you said, the hardest qualification process to qualify for the World Cup.
1000%. And something that obviously has made it even harder, of course, as everybody knows from the past qualifying round, is COVID. As of course, that remains, the pandemic remains an issue throughout the world, not just from a soccer perspective, but obviously in everybody's lives. And we saw what happened with, the restriction of certain clubs, specifically Premier League and some Europeans, not allowing some players to go. Some did go, but there was so much drama just because obviously most South American countries, or all of them, and vice versa, are on each other's red list. So traveling was a major issue in terms of quarantining and returning. We saw what happened with Brazil and Argentina, which was just like, for everybody, it was like, oh my God, look at this insanity. Like they canceled the game because of COVID, etc. All South Americans, we were like, it's just another day.
Literally, it's so funny because it's like made huge headlines, right? But when the game stopped, everyone was just like, oh shoot, at first, right? Like, what's going on? But then it was like, and then we got to enjoy Brazil's training session that fuboTV aired, and it just became this hit. It's just like, South Americans, we just roll with it. We're always thrown with these things.
We always roll with it. But everybody should know, by the way, and I wanted Melly's opinion on this, of course. The Premier League on Friday did announce that they've now done, a deal with the government, etc., where if you're double vaccinated, if you're a South American player and you're fully vaccinated, you're allowed to travel to countries of the UK's red list, which is, of course, South American nations. And you'll be allowed to train and play when they quarantine on return in sort of their team bubbles. So there's no more going to be a 10-day quarantine away from home or whatever. They don't have to do that anymore. So now the rules have been relaxed. So if you're like a player from Tottenham or Man City or Aston Villa, whatever, and you're coming back after these qualifiers, now you're allowed. If you're fully vaccinated, it will be much more relaxed. You just have to live in the bubble of the club. What do you think about this, Melissa, about the relaxation of these rules? It surely is a welcome factor to not just the players, but the national teams themselves, of course.
Well, I think as what we saw from the last match days in September, it was quite the learning experience dealing with COVID, dealing with CONMEBOL travel, and dealing with these European clubs. And, what we saw was this huge dilemma happen and this fight between, FIFA and CONMEBOL and these clubs, because the owners of these clubs don't want to release these players for their good reason, and the coaches as well. But it leaves this question that they travel to these CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. They're gone for a 10-day window. And then once they return, they would have had to quarantine for 10 days, leaving them out of their club competition for 20 plus perhaps days. And then 10 days later, probably have to go back to another World Cup qualifier. So it's just crazy to think about. My opinion on this is, as long as these protocols are being taken and they're vaccinated, they should be able to return safely into their playing environment. However, maybe, Miguel, maybe you can expand on this, because I don't know if I understood this clearly. They return back into their bubble. They can train and they can play, but are they able to compete in like a Premier League match upon return? That's my confusion.
Yeah, if they follow regulation, they should be okay. If you're double vaccinated, that's the key. If you're not vaccinated, no, sorry, it's a 10-day quarantine, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're fully vaccinated, you return to a bubble within your club. You're not going home. You're within your club. And once a day, you can train and you can play. So you should be okay. The problem here, though, Melissa, as well, is that the last games of this window are on Thursday night, the 14th or something like that. That's late. I'm just specifically thinking Premier League. It's very late, right? UK time. Some matches then begin from the Premier League on Saturday. So even if you're like fine and you can return, you don't have any time to train. So maybe some players won't be able to play on that weekend, just literally because the last games are on that late Thursday night.
Right. No, we already talked about how tough it is to be a player playing in these CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. Like the time, the travel difference and everything. And just what you mentioned, getting back to England or wherever, Spain, France, even players that go back to Russia, who knows what their weekend schedules like. It's really tough on their bodies, on their, mental health as well. There's so many different factors that play into this, but as long as they go with the protocols and the safety protocols around COVID, I think, hey, it's fair game almost at this point, this point in the whole COVID map that we're dealing with. But, hopefully nothing happens. Hopefully they all stay healthy. We shall see. We shall see. It will be a very intriguing thing to do. But one thing's for sure, it hopefully won't be the mess that was last time around. All right, let's look at this table. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying table, because now we are going to talk some business here, Melissa. All right, let's talk about the fact that Brazil and Argentina are unsurprisingly leading the groups. Obviously, both of them are also undefeated,
by the way. They haven't lost a game yet. Brazil clearly in charge with 24 points. Argentina with 18. So let's just focus a little bit on them. By the way, Brazil have Venezuela away, Colombia away, Uruguay at home. Argentina have Paraguay away, Uruguay at home, and Peru at home. So their window is pretty doable. This is basically the story. Brazil and Argentina leading the group. What do you make of them? Do you see any Brazil or Argentina, Melissa, maybe putting their foot off the gas and maybe losing some points here?
Absolutely not. They're not putting their foot off the gas. and you look at their call-up list too. It's like they're not putting the foot off the gas. And maybe the only thing that Brazil, they don't even have to worry about is Neymar. It will not be playing this next match because of yellow cards, but their next match that you just mentioned is against Venezuela. So, I mean, that's not much of a worry for them.
Right. With all due respect. But it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. But Brazil is always going to be Brazil. They're definitely the most dynamic, complete, versatile team, both offensively and defensively, that South America has to offer. It's incredible. I was reading some stats earlier. You got to listen to this. It's crazy. In 8 matches, they scored 19 goals, making them the highest scoring team in this cycle to date. Now, so that's attacking. Defensively, Brazil has not received a goal in World Cup qualifiers in an entire year. And that was actually against Peru.
Yeah, thank goodness we took one away.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're the first team in CONMEBOL history to put together 9 clean sheets in a row at home. And their last loss was back in October of 2015. Like 2015. Yeah. So that's some stats on Brazil, just showing that they are the absolute boss of South America.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a key thing is just Coach Chiche has been there for a while now, and there's an identity and they're balanced. That's to your point. They're not just good offensively, they're good defensively. And when you have that formula, forget about it. Anything on Argentina, by the way, obviously Copa America champions Lionel Messi finally gets a major trophy there. They have Paraguay away, Uruguay at home, and then Peru at home. They do have players. The squad is looking good because now, obviously, from the relaxed situation, Argentina have 3 Premier League players coming from, for this window. Anything for Argentina as they face in this window, because they should also be fine in terms of qualification to the World Cup.
Yeah, they're fine, as you say. I think that they have a great roster that they're calling back again. Actually, it's good to see that. Oh my God, I'm having my mind blank. Jouet player. He's back. He's back. Dybala is back, which is actually quite interesting because he was away from the national team for quite a while.
Yeah.
But on top of Messi, Lautaro Martinez has done incredible. I think he has like around 15 goals so far, has been a goal scorer as well for the Albiceleste. So I think for Argentina, they're also not taking any acceleration off that gas pedal. They have really been on this uphill also with the confidence that they gained from winning Copa America. Also with Messi just being still in his prime. He's just not stopping. And he also just passed Luis Suarez's World Cup qualifying goal scoring, I guess, lead or record over 26 goals. So yeah, I mean, they're unbeaten. Their unbeaten streak right now is incredible. So I expect a lot from Argentina still. And their match days ahead, if we look at it, you said Paraguay, Uruguay, and Peru. Probably the most difficult one will be Uruguay at home, which will be an interesting matchup given the rivalry. But I expect a lot of Argentina.
Yeah, me too. I think the thing with Scaloni as well and this Argentina squad is that it's no more such an over-reliance on Lionel Messi. There's a clear squad here that knows exactly what they're doing, and they're very good now in the midfield. And to me, that was a major key. So Brazil and Argentina, they are done. Our second segment will just move down the table, by the way. We were just discussing them. Let's talk about it now. It's Uruguay, Ecuador, Colombia. Just a little narrative for you, everybody. Oscar Tavares, of course, the manager of Uruguay, one of the legendary South American managers. And Uruguay have always... from a historical perspective, Melissa, have always been very solid. But in this window, they still haven't really proven that much. They've already lost twice. I mean, they are third, so it's not crazy. But I just wanted to add some context. Between third place, which is Uruguay, they have 15 points. And Chile, who are in 8th, they have 7 points. That's nothing. So this is a very tight now qualifying campaign. So 1 and 2, they're fine. But Uruguay have lost twice already. They haven't looked as dynamic. What do you make of this team as they look ahead in this window?
I think they've been in good form. You know, they're still in third place. The last match days, they performed well, earning 7 points out of 9 points possible. Drew to Peru, beat Bolivia, beat Ecuador. So I think, you know, they are in a situation where they're okay. Can they do better? Absolutely. They were without Cavani and Suarez previously.
Correct.
Which also taught us a lot about, one, the coach Tavares, showing young players confidence and giving them opportunities and minutes on the field, which we saw young players step up in the last match days and score. It was Arrascaeta, Agustin Alvarez, Gaston Pereiro. Those were 3 players that are young and made an impact. And doing so without, like I said, Cavani or Suarez. So now this match day coming in, they've got their squad back. They got Cavani and Suarez back, you know, Valverde. Suarez is in such a moment with La Liga. He just, after last weekend against Barcelona with Atletico Madrid, he just, as we know, has scored against every La Liga team that he's played against. So that is absolutely incredible. So my take on Uruguay, they're in a good moment. But they have to watch out for these match days ahead because, it's difficult. They got Colombia, Argentina, and Brazil. So it's an uphill battle if they want to keep that third place spot.
Yeah, it's a really tough window for them. So it's going to be very intriguing, especially because the last 2, Argentina and Brazil, are away from home. That's a massive, massive opportunity for them to see how to do something. All right, very quickly, Ecuador and Colombia. First of all, Ecuador, something that everybody needs to know. When it comes to talent, it's always going to be there. They are a tremendously talented squad everywhere along the side. Ecuador's problem has always been consistency, especially at the end. But as you look at this table right now, they're 4th, 13 points, even with Colombia, same points, but obviously a different goal difference. To Colombia's side, who always has talent, and obviously I really want to know what you think here, Melissa Ortiz, but this is now a critical point for both of them. And when you look at the matches that they have to play, Ecuador has Bolivia at home, Venezuela away, Colombia away. Not terrible. Colombia has Uruguay, Brazil, and Ecuador. That's a little harder. What do you make of these 2, especially because they're on even points?
Ooh, this is a tough one. I always feel like Ecuador is like the dark horse in some way or form.
Yeah.
You know, because there's not huge player names that we see like we do with Colombia. They do have heck of players, Erner Valencia, Mikel Estrada, who are top players, but not those celeb players that we all know that, you know, that are just, when they say the name, we know who they are, where they're from.
Right.
But where I do think that Ecuador does well is they're a young squad, similar to Uruguay, but they've had much more experience being that young of age. There's like a 19-year-old, there's a 22-year-old, 20-year-old. Like, it's incredible. And not only that, but they have this, I feel similar even to Uruguay, where it's like Uruguay has a garra charrua, which is like the all out, just do all out, impossible to win. Well, Ecuador, I feel, has that similar characteristic in that they attack fast, they defend hard, they're very aggressive, and they give it their all those 90 minutes on the pitch. So it's a tough one that you just mentioned, you know, the points in the table. Let's have a reminder back, though. Last qualifiers for the last World Cup, 2018, they were good in the first half of World Cup qualifiers. I think, were in the same position. And then the second half of the World Cup qualifiers, they dropped and they didn't make it.
Yeah.
They plummeted. They didn't make the World Cup. So they got to definitely look out for that. They don't repeat that history.
Yeah, but there's a lot of talent. I mean, we talk about Plata, Moises Caicedo, of course, Estupiñán, who plays in La Liga as well. This is a very good team. It's just about consistency. Very quick question on your Colombian side for a second. What do you make of James Rodriguez leaving Everton, going to a Qatari club? It's a shame. I mean, he's not that old, you know. And then Rafa Benitez had some very harsh comments about him, saying that he prefers, obviously, to be more comfortable and the money as opposed to working. And then on the other side, you have Radamel Falcao, who's still doing everything he can, killing it right now with Rayo Vallecano. What do you make of that?
Gosh, it's such a hard subject, honestly, because personally, I don't know him. I've met him before, but it's hard to talk about someone's personality. Like, Benitez does without knowing the facts. But if he says that and he knows him, perhaps that's true. Young player, was at his prime after that 2014 World Cup, and has saw the best of what football can bring you, whether it was at Real, whether it was at Bayern, but then he's also seen the worst through his experiences with different coaches, whether it is with Benitez, whether it was with Zinedine Zidane.
Yeah, and injuries didn't help, of course, as well. He very injury prone, yeah.
So it's unlucky, but to get to the chase, I think this move to a Qatari team, I wish he would have, if it was true that AC Milan wanted him, why not have taken that? Taken a pay cut with the gazillions of money that you're already making. Right. But this Qatari team, when I think about it, it could provide him with minutes under his legs, something that he was not going to get at Everton. And also, if Reinaldo Rueda, the coach of Colombia, is calling up players from the Russian league, if Gustavo Cuellar, he plays in Saudi Arabia, if he's calling up players from different leagues, not necessarily from England, France, Spain, or even the United States in the MLS, then he's got to give him a chance. But that's, of course, if his attitude plays to par and brings good energy to the team. Because right now what Colombia has and has brought back through Reinaldo Rueda is that good energy, is the locker room mentality that needs to be there to qualify. So if James can bring that and not diminish that, then, all is game, all is fair.
Yeah, and listen, your point about playing in non-traditional, European clubs or whatever, Peru has Andre Carrillo playing in there, Christian Cueva, and they're still kind of killing it. Definitely Andre Carrillo. All right, listen, let's move on here now, and let's talk about the second part, the third segment, but, going lower down the table. But when we say this, by the way, a reminder, it's really tight, very, very tight. Okay, so when you look at the standings, Paraguay, Peru, and Chile. Paraguay has 11 points. Peru has 8. Chile has 7. And then at the very bottom, Bolivia and Venezuela with 6 and 4, respectively. The only thing that I'll say about Paraguay right now is they face Argentina at home, Chile away, Bolivia away. And to your point at the beginning, Melissa, Bolivia away is never easy with the altitude of La Paz. Miguel Almirón does return for Paraguay, so we'll see what they do there. And Peru and Chile face each other. If you don't know about this rivalry, I really hope people are taping it.
Well, this is the question spun for you because you're dressed out, you're decked out in your Peru.
I'm ready to go.
Loud and proud, loud and proud. So for you, and one of the most well-known players that we all know, whether it's here in the MLS or in South America, Raul Ruidíaz, it seems as though he can't exactly replicate what he does at Seattle Sounders for Peru. Why do you think that is?
It's a good question. I think Raul Ruidíaz, first of all, is he's no rookie to the national team. He has been called up for several years now, and there's no denying his talent. And to your point, the things that he has done at Seattle Sounders continues to do. He's already a champion there. Everything within that system favors him because it's not just him. He works alongside a really tremendously talented trio, and the midfield that Seattle Sounders have. It's really, really good. The problem, I feel, with Peru. And Peru, by the way, are entering this with a very good squad. I feel very good about who they have. The problem with Peru is that Ricardo Gareca plays with a lone striker. And this lone striker and the things that he has to do are not necessarily the traits that Ruidíaz has. So it's more a system failing Ruidíaz as opposed to the other way around. Not to say that, Ruidíaz has not really taken advantage when he is on the pitch because he really struggles. But when you have Paulo Guerrero, Gianluca Lapadula, those number 2, and then bring in Santiago Ormeño as well. Peru relies so much on a strong number 9 that can hold the ball and then look for wingers to come from the outside. That's not Ruidíaz. He's much better when he works with somebody next to him or even a set of trios that penetrate, the final third. And that's not Peru, unfortunately. And I think that's always going to be a problem. Unless Gareca suddenly says, you know what, Lapadula, Ruidíaz, both of you go up front. However, I will say this. In the press conference, Gareca was saying Ruidíaz right now is the hottest Peruvian player out there, and he deserves to be brought up. He deserves to be talked about. So we'll see if there are changes. But to me, that's always been the key with Peru. It's very intriguing, and we'll see what happens to them. They have Chile, Paraguay. They have Chile, Bolivia, and then Argentina. So this is a critical time for Peru. But Ruidíaz hopefully will see some minutes, but it's no surprise why he does better with the Seattle Sounders, I think. What do you make of Peru when you watch him?
I've loved the integration of La Paluda. You mentioned him, and it already
Love.
just like sparks my brain.
He's a hero in Peru.
Yeah.
Like, we love him.
Literally, it's kind of like, where has he been his whole life, honestly? And why hasn't he been in Peru until now?
Exactly. But we absolutely love. He's a hero. He's broken his nose, fractured his ribs, and he leaves South America and he's like, I had the best time.
He still plays everything. He walks off with battle wounds, and he's like, when's the next one?
100%. He is La Pagol, and we absolutely love him. Yeah. Chile, by the way, Alexis Sanchez reportedly is returning, I believe. But the real story here, Melissa, I don't know about, but Ben Brereton Diaz, who plays for Blackburn, has a Chilean mother, was called up. He is a Chilean icon now. By the way, scoring for fun these days. He's already got 10 goals in the championship. He's joint top scorer in the championship with Mitrovic, and he wasn't allowed to play. Blackburn were not releasing him in the previous time, but now he is back, and he is one to watch out for Chile. Only 22 years old as well. A tremendous talent.
Definitely tremendous talent. He's like he's not American, but como que el gringo, you know, he doesn't really speak Spanish, so he has to find his way and make an impact, and he has because of his playing experience. It's hard. I tell you from experience, you know, I grew up here in the US and went to Colombia, and they don't accept you that fast. They don't accept you. You really have to prove yourself on the pitch, and that's something that he has done, and it's incredible to see. One thing, though, for Chile, that is actually not good. Eduardo Vargas is out. He's out. That's a big loss for them, especially if we look at the table and see how they're struggling. You know, they weren't in the last World Cup, and they're perhaps not going to be in this World Cup too with the player roster that they have. Of course, they're all veterans and old on the older side. But man, they're in a moment that is definitely difficult. And it's sad because you think of a player like Alexis Sanchez, who has done so much internationally, and I honestly, and Chileans are going to hate me for this, but I don't know if I see it possible for Chile to qualify.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, the golden generation is coming to an end, but at least, and producer Desnor has made a good point, at least they made the best out of that golden generation, winning 2 Copa America titles. But in September, in the qualifiers, they lost to Brazil. It was a very well-fought game. Lost to Brazil 1-0. They tied with Ecuador, even though Ecuador had 10 men. And then they lost 3-1 to Chile. So they need to start getting things going. But let's give an honorable mention, by the way, at the very bottom. Unfortunately, Venezuela, the only country in South America that has never qualified to the World Cup, and Bolivia as well, who, with all due respect, there is talent there, but their reliance on the altitude is their biggest friend, and they're not making the most of it. So when you look at the very bottom of the table, you have Bolivia with 6 points, Venezuela with 4. Venezuela has already lost 7 matches, Bolivia 5. But it is very tight. Do you see either of them climbing up the table, Melissa?
Oh, man. I have to feel for my Venezolanos, but no for Venezuela. And for Bolivia, could they climb up the table? Yes. Will they make a contention spot or get in? They won't. I don't see them qualifying. But hats off to Marcelo Martins, who, despite them being in 9th place, he's the top goal scorer in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers right now. So they definitely utilize their home field advantage, their altitude in La Paz to their advantage, as you mentioned. But he's also converted a ton of these goals also on the penalty spot, but also in great goal scoring opportunities. So Marcelo Martins, like, hats off to them and of course the players, because it's not easy to compete when you are not exactly like a Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, Uruguay. It's hard when you don't have those circumstances and that support. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And the same can be said of Venezuela, by the way, who do play some really good stuff. They gave Peru a very good fight as well. And they have, some really good players. And, obviously Joseph Martinez, but it's not just about him. Thomas Rincon, Savarino, Soteldo, like, they have a very good squad. It's just that they just can't quite organize. And by the way, a lot of inconsistency from manager perspective as well. They lost, I think, the most changes of managers out of any nation in World Cup qualifiers. So Venezuela, I guess it would be the same thing, unfortunately.
And let's not forget Venezuela's keeper, the young fellow Wilker Fariñez. Incredible. Fariñez is incredible. He actually played, I remember watching him play. He was at Millonarios, I believe it was. He played in the Colombian Professional League. He's incredible. And this kid, I mean, you see, when he played against Colombia a few match days ago, like even David Ospina went up to him just to congratulate him because he's
superhuman ability. Yeah, only 23 years old. I've been talking about Wilke Fariñez for a very long time. He's ridiculous. Plays this game now in Liga, by the way, for Lanza, but he's one to watch out for. Absolutely correct. But that's your World Cup CONMEBOL qualifiers for October. Melissa Ortiz, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before we leave, is there anything else that you would like to just plug or anything that we didn't discuss? Because it's always an honor to have somebody like you, Melly. Anything that you want to say before we say goodbye?
I mean, if you're going to set this up like that, I might as well.
I'm setting you up, baby.
I do have a coffee company that you mentioned at the beginning of the program. It's called Kickoff Coffee Co., Kickoff Coffee Company. It's a coffee company around soccer, everything that we love. We drink coffee, we watch soccer, we listen to soccer on this podcast. So that's it. Check us out on Instagram, Kickoff Coffee Co., or our website at www.kickoffcoffeeco.com. And you know what? I'll throw in a discount code. How about that?
There you go. So make sure that you follow Melissa Ortiz on social as well. And by the way, I can attest to the fact that the coffee is very good. She sent me a Peruvian bean one, and it was so good. So absolutely, Kickoff Coffee. Make sure that you check it out. Melissa Ortiz, you can watch her on fuboTV as well and follow her on social media. She's all over the place, and I'm so happy to see her shine. Melly, thank you so much, my friend.
Gracias. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Make sure that you follow Qué Golazo, because aside from this, we have a lot of USMNT content and much, much more. Follow us on Qué Golazo Pod on Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, CBS, and CBS Sports app. Have a great rest of your week.